Ready to embrace the magical side of life, where anything is possible and the infinite is accessible to all? Let's have a conscious conversation about what's going on in the world, in your life, and your relationship from the expanded perspective of your soul. The path to awareness begins and ends in the heart. So let's take it there, one step at a time, and learn to cultivate magic in your life every single day. In each episode, we share a collective space in which we discover the unique facets of our own magic and embody our superhuman qualities by humbly exploring how it's super simply to be human. Hosts Kaí and Dell co-create a magical experience to remind you that you are magical as fuck. Now, be unleashed. This is our daily magic.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Our Daily Magic, in which what our intention is to have magical conversations in which you get to see someone display their own unique magic, not only for themselves to see, but for the world to see. Our belief is if you're watching this, you are magical as fuck in your own way. And this conversation is going to allow you to, one, discover some magic in a unique way from this person, but two, find things from this conversation that's going to enable you to integrate more of your own magic into the world. I am so excited for this conversation. It's just another co-creation of synchronicities that happen, and here we are to create this powerful conversation here. So I want to get right into this because it's going to be fun. Buckle your seats and get ready for this ride.
First, let me express my gratitude for the king and queen for inviting me. I appreciate it. I am grateful. I am humbly grateful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Likewise, man. And also grateful for the connections that gave me that nudge to reach out to you. And I came across Steve Bacon. I heard of his name, and which there's a powerful video on YouTube by the ultimate coach, Steve Hardison, in which he is talking about being. And in there, he mentioned just the impact that Steve Bacon was doing then, is continuing to do, and also his mission, which we'll hear more about. And I had the nudge at that time to reach out to him, but something held me back. I would say my own limiting beliefs or something stopped me from doing it. But then a couple weeks ago, and you guys can catch that episode as well with Laban, in which Laban mentions Steve Bacon's name again. And for me, I'm a synchronistic person. When I hear the universe say something to me multiple times, I feel like that's a reason for me to do something. And that's when I decided to reach out to him, because this is something very dear to my heart in which he's looking to make an impact with, and that's with the people of color community. So let's get into this. We're going to have a shifting conversation. I am one half of the host. My name is Dell, and
I'm Kaí, and I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Bacon as well. His mission is to help Black people rediscover their power so that they can show the world how to love and lead the world to peace. He truly believes that we do not need a savior. We only need to recognize that we are our own saviors individually and collectively. He is only interested in teaching Black people about themselves, in being how powerful they are as human beings first, and in the essence of who they are. Our true selves are far greater than our culture, because when we recognize our own greatness, we will change, and so will the culture. Right now, it is our culture that's keeping us from seeing how powerful we actually are. And we have become more committed to our culture than we are to our evolution. Steve's personal experiences, proven case studies, dynamic energy, we felt that, and passionate comedic delivery have made him an in-demand behavioral coach. Everybody, Steve Bacon.
Wait, we got to do the intro. Go ahead. Do the intro. You got to do the intro right now. Bring it in.
What's happening, family? It's your coach, Steve. Bacon. Yes. And can I say something real quick before we really dive into the audience? Listen. Some people call me an enema. And let me explain why. Because my job is to get in your system and make you take a mental shit. And it's not the most comfortable feeling. Because in some instances, I'm going to shake your belief system, everything you've been taught about you. Most of them limiting. And I'm going to challenge them at their core. And it's going to cause a reaction because a belief is a strong emotion attached to an idea. There's an idea that you have about yourself that is very limiting, and you're emotionally attached to that idea. I'm going to shake it. So don't listen for what you agree with or disagree with. Just allow this conversation to wash over you. That's it.
Wow. And for those you watching live, we appreciate you. Have your comments, have your questions, and we are going to get right into this. So, you caught my attention when you mentioned essence.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious for you is, what do you feel is the essence of the Black community?
Well, let's just talk about the individual itself.
Mm-hmm.
I am is the essence. I am is the essence of every single last one of us. And I am the protector and defender of I am. The perfection that is I am. When a child is born, and let me explain. When a child is born, you guys have children?
Yeah, got one. Yep.
Okay. You remember when that baby was born and you look at that baby, you remember the pureness, that feeling of just absolute pureness, all possibility, no limitation. The only thing that exists between you and that baby in the moment is just pure love. All you see is pure perfection. No matter how ugly the baby is, right? Everybody look at the baby and we just go, God, there's some part of us that connects with the baby. I ain't talking about y'all, baby. I'm just saying in general. You know how people be talking about people babies. Right? So, and you look at that baby, and that baby just is. That baby consciously doesn't even know they're alive yet. That is literally all possibility. That is the closest to God a human being will ever get. That newborn. While that baby is still unaware of their existence. And then imagine one day waking up out of a coma with amnesia. Can you imagine? That's when self-awareness kicks in. You have no recollection of being here before. You have no idea what the fuck these things are, right? And so the internal question becomes, who am I? Who am I? That becomes the internal question. And depending on what environment you grew up in determines what answers you get.
Mm.
When my wife got her master's degree in psychology, she had to write a thesis. And I didn't go to college, so I learned this through watching her. And that shit looked really hard. And I was like, I'm definitely not interested in that. So she had to pick a problem, pose a question, do a whole bunch of research, and come up with a conclusion. Then her thesis was her conclusion and her findings. Every last one of us has a thesis on ourselves. From the day self-awareness kicks in, the question of who am I becomes the problem. And then based on our experiences and how we're being treated, because self-image is not what I think of me, it's not what you think of me, it's what I think you think of me. And at the time when we're answering this or asking this question, we're talking about mama and daddy. What I think you think of me is who I am. I base my findings off of that. And then I come up with all of these different situations that gives me an overall understanding of who I believe I am, and I make a decision about myself. And that becomes the foundation for which I build my life on. And 99% of the times it's limiting. So I'm saying that to say the essence of who we are, I am, is perfect. And it is the ignition key to creation. And when you understand that that is who you are, I am, you're the thinker, not the thoughts. Then you're able to separate the limitations from the perfection that you are. And notice that because I'm the thinker and not the thoughts, if I don't like the thoughts, then I can rewrite them and recreate my reality. But that's what I mean by the essence of who we are. We are not our limitations. You are absolute perfection.
Amen. So discovering that essence and that remembrance of that, because like you mentioned in life, when we come here, the formless and being a baby, and then the condition that happens from our parenting and our social upbringings and stuff. So for you, how are you able to rediscover that for yourself? Like, what was your journey like of your conditioning you may experience in your childhood, your upbringings, to the point of where you are right now, in which you are aware of the essence of who you are?
So my mother became addicted to crack in 1984. I went to 14 different schools growing up. I was molested as a kid. When I met my father when I was 8 years old, at least that's when I remember meeting him, it was my mother dropped me off as she was going off on one of her weekend binges like she normally did. So she dropped me off to my grandmother's house. The Chico DeBarge looking mother shows up the next day talking about you coming to live with me. And I'm like, who is you? I don't know you. And I'm looking at my grandma like, you really finna let me walk out the house with this thing for real? And where is my mama? Right? And because he thinks I'm being disrespectful, he gives me a whooping. And I'm like, wait a minute. Did you just put your hands on me? I don't even know you. And you putting your hands on me and you let this nigga put the, I'm pissed. Right? And he takes me to live with him. So I become very angry, become very resentful in that moment. My mother at that point to me is trash because you just literally gave me up and was too chicken shit to even tell me that this was happening. So you dead to me at this point. And not to mention that the following years of my father were very contentious, right? Borderline abusive. It was abusive. We had our conversation about it, right? And at 17, well, at 14, him and him got into the biggest fight that we ever had. I threatened to kill him. He says he don't remember that. That's fine. I got sent back to live with my grandmother. And at 17, I took off to the military. I'm about to go very deep. At 17, I took off to the military. And when my grandmother passed away, and I don't know if anybody else had that one person in their life that was holding them together, right? My grandmother was that for me. She was that glue. And when she passed away after I joined the military, I completely unraveled. And the first thing I did was what any sane, rational human being would do at 17 years old, emotionally distraught. I married the first girl who said she loved me. And then unfortunately for her, I was physically, mentally, and emotionally abusive to her until she got the courage to leave. And rightfully so. But when she left, all of that abandonment issue started coming back up. And we were fine right before she said she loved me. We were great. As soon as she said she loved me, I turned into somebody else. Didn't understand where it was coming from. But when she finally got the courage to leave, I couldn't take all the abandonment, the emotion. I couldn't take any of it. And all I could see for tomorrow was more of what I've experienced yesterday. So I did what any sane, rational human being would do at that point. I took a loaded gun, put it in my mouth, and pulled the trigger. And the only thing that saved me was God. Because that thing was loaded and ready to go. And she was banging on the door. Stop! And I'm like, no, bitch, you and everybody else that has hurt me, abandoned me, all of y'all is going to have to live with my brain splattered all over the walls. This is my way of getting revenge. And then when the gun clicked, it was instant regret. I realized I didn't want to die. You click and you just, ooh, shit. Wait a minute. You come to your senses real quick. And I realized I didn't want to die. I just didn't know how to live. So I prayed for things to get better. And they got worse. She left. And I ended up get put in anger management. And the funny part about anger management is I'm sitting there telling everybody else, my anger is justified. It's you motherfuckers that's got the problem, not me. You've been through what I've been through.
Oh, yeah.
My anger is justified. And I did what any sane, rational human being would do. I don't want to die, but I still got all this emotion. I still got all this feelings of abandonment. I still have all this trauma. So I started drinking. 18 years old, drinking to get drunk. And then I went to a party. It's about to get real deep. I went to a party at 18 years old that one of my military buddies threw. And I had two goals: drink, fuck. Kai, listen, don't judge me. I told y'all before we started.
Like a chocolate cacao.
Don't judge me. I told y'all before we started. I had two goals, and I accomplished both, as any 18-year-old male would want to.
Mm-hmm.
Only 3 days later to be picked up and accused of rape.
Oh, man.
Now, long story short, we proved that I didn't rape the girl. She ended up admitting she lied to avoid getting in trouble. But then they hit me 2 days later or a day later with, well, she was underage. And here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, you being black, she being white, you want to go to jail or you want to go home? That's literally what they told me. I said, but I didn't know she was underage. And they said, yeah, we know. But in the state of Virginia, the law says unknowingly having sex with a minor is still a felony. I'm like, the contradiction is in the fucking law. What 18-year-old do you know walks around checking IDs at 3 o'clock in the morning? But they said, we understand. You want to go to jail? You want to go home? I said, I want to go home. They said, well, if we take this to trial, you may get a jury that's not of your peers. A bunch of white Republican mothers and fathers who will throw your little black ass under the bus. That's what the DA told me. So my lawyer, who was the ex-DA at the time, said the best we could do is plead guilty and ask for what's called a withhold finding, which is if you don't get in trouble. And by the way, I was studying to become a cop. I was actually doing a lot of undercover work at the time to become a police officer, military, while this was happening. So long story short, I ended up pleading guilty and they gave me 10 years probation. And I got to my probation officer. My probation officer said, this was the biggest crock of shit I ever seen in my entire life. And as minute you can pay off this restitution, I'm letting you off probation. And that's what he did. 2 years later, cut it 10 years down to 2. And he said, get the fuck out of Virginia. Now, during this time period, I'm walking out the courtroom, and this is where the transition happens. Oh, yeah, by the way, I got married for the second time during this whole process. Yeah. So during this time period, I meet this guy named Hank, and I'm walking out the courtroom, and this big burly black man stands in the middle of the row in the row, and he says, "Young man, you don't know me, but we have some mutual friends. Let me give you a ride home." I said, "Okay." And we get in the car, and I'll never forget it because John Legend just came out with Ordinary People. So that was playing in the car. Right. Just to give you the time frame of when this was happening. And it was in a red Mazda 6 with gold seats. So I'm giving y'all the right. And we're in the car, and it smells good, and he's playing John Legend, and he says, "Young man, I know where you think your life is about to go, but it doesn't have to go that way. If you are willing to change what you believe about yourself, everything will change." And I had no idea what the fuck he meant. But I was willing to find out because I was out of options. And for a year, Hank held me by my hand, metaphorically, and would not let it go. And he shoved every personal development book, seminar, CD, everything he could down my throat. And no matter how disrespectful I was, he never relented. 17 years later, I run a multiple six-figure international coaching business. I train thousands of people to see themselves differently. I'm married to my best friend. We travel the world unapologetically and without permission. I'm climbing the socioeconomic chain of relationships. I get to spend every other week teaching people coming out of prison how to change how they see themselves. I work anywhere from meth heads to police chiefs and doctors of psychology. I have an absolutely extraordinary life. Became an author. And people always want to know, what was the difference between, by the way, all of that happened before I was 20. That whole everything before I was 20. And so people want to know, what was the difference between then and now? And when it's simply because I understood the essence of I am, if I wanted to make it simple. I became fascinated with the human belief system. Can I get rid of this trauma, or do I have to live with it? Because the medical community teaches coping, not healing. Coping is like having a trash can full of shit sitting in your living room learning how to deal with the smell. Get some sage and some incense and some masks, but the shit's still there. Healing is jumping in that motherfucker butt naked, cleaning it out, and then pushing it outside. It takes more courage, commitment, and effort, but when you're done, you're done. And you can go on and live the rest of your life. So I became fascinated with human behavior. And can I overcome this trauma and create a different life for myself? And that's what sparked this 18-year fascination. And once I figured out how to do those transformations, how to teach people how to transform themselves in a very short period of time, I'm talking about hours, not years. Then I said that I would spend the rest of my life freeing as many people as I can. I went from Neo to now I'm Morpheus. And I'm looking for Neos to set free. I'm gonna show you how fucking powerful you are.
Is it the new Morpheus or the older Morpheus?
No, the old one.
Did you watch the new one?
The original. I did watch the new one.
What'd you think about it?
I think you're setting it up for 2 more. I just saw it from a sense of this laying a foundation for a whole new storyline.
Yeah.
But it dropped a whole lot of truth in that mother, though.
Mm.
That part when they was in the shop and he was giving her that whole monologue, and he talked about, we realize that the more angry you are, the more energy you put out. And that our goal now is to keep you together but separate. Oh! I was like, is anybody else listening to this shit? They dropping truth. So anyway, yes, I did see it, and I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
So, question: why the Black community, as opposed to, because you had a lot of choices. You had the choice to talk to just addicts, you know, being from where your mom came from. You had the choice to talk to just men because you're a dude and you had an experience with your dad. You had the choice to talk to your geographic location. You could have been like anti-Virginia and like, you know, did a whole thing about that. But you chose to focus on the Black community, and I'm so curious why.
Well, a couple things. One, logically, I won't live long enough on this earth to change the whole world. None of us will. And for somebody to think that I can go change the whole world is just, it's dumb. You don't live long enough. There's 7 billion people, 7 billion different perspectives. So that's number one. Number two, I saw the effects of the conditioning that Black people have experienced throughout the last 400 years in my own parents. Number three, I do have a desire to shift the world. But I'm also very aware of this. Some people may disagree with this, and that's okay. This is my reality. America's biggest export is Black culture. Think about how much hip hop has shifted the world. Even in Lagos, Nigeria, it's not what it used to be 50 years ago because of hip hop. You got kids in Japan napifying their hair.
How, Sway?
They have salons now where they're able to do it.
Wait.
Yeah.
So I know, like in our community, people use perms and stuff to straighten their hair out. So now there's a reverse engineering
There's
to
a
make
reverse
it come straight
engineering.
to yo.
There's reverse engineering, right? My point is that when Black people make healing cool, so were the rest of the world. So there's an old story of an old man on his deathbed who was regretting his life. And when his grandchild asked him, "Why do you regret your life?" he said, "Because I spent my whole life trying to change the world. And now that I'm laying here on my deathbed, I realize that I should have just started with myself.
Mm.
And then once I got myself right, then I'll do my family. And I'll hold a space for them. And then once I get my family right, then I'll work on my community. And then my community will work on the world. I have to make the biggest impact where I have the most influence and where I can connect the most. And almost every, not every, but almost every situation that Black people come to me with, I can relate on some level from that story that I told you, and then some. I gave you the Reader's Digest version. And I know that healing only comes down to one word: meaning. And as a people, we have no idea how powerful we are because we've been conditioned to believe that we are less than. And it breaks my heart. Because we could become so focused on the resentment that we stop building. There was a time period, and how we got to where the progress that we have now, there was a time period where we were being ridiculed and oppressed and everything else, but we were still building, if that makes sense. And that's because we had a common purpose, one voice. We knew exactly what we wanted. But we haven't had a big enough narrative since the civil rights movement for us to unite under one voice. And the narrative that I'm building is that if you just focus on transforming yourself, just you, simultaneously the family transforms, simultaneously the community transforms, seemingly overnight. If we stop focusing on everybody else as the problem and just turn inwards, then everything simultaneously changes. If I were to give you a house of Legos or a bunch of Legos and I said, hey, you could build whatever you want to build. Go ahead. Build what you want to build. And then when you turn around and start building, I poke you in the back with a needle. And then you turn around and go, what the fuck was that? And I just, nothing. And then you turn back around and you start building again. And I turn around, boop, poke you again. How many times do I get to poke you before you just abandon everything and just be like, I'm about to beat your ass? And then you just start arguing. That's where we are as a community. We've been poked so many times that we just fucking abandoned building. And we're more focused on proving that you did me wrong. And you can't focus on building and resentment at the same time. You can't focus on proving that you did me wrong and create at the same time. Both of them require all of your energy and all of your attention. And we were taught that we were conditioned. We were never taught how to recondition. Imagine I give you, you're born with one car and you had to keep that car your whole life. You were assigned to that car that car was assigned to you like a social security number. You had to keep it your whole life. Couldn't change it. But you weren't given the owner's manual and you were told not to trust mechanics. What do you do when something starts to go wrong? And if you nigger rigging shit, what are you teaching your children? And nobody's performing at the level they could perform. Because we don't know how fucking powerful we are. Now I'm about to say something that's about to trigger the shit out of somebody, but I'm gonna explain it.
Trigger warning.
Trigger warning.
She had like an announcement.
Shit.
Do it.
Because somebody could take this so out of context, but it's so fucking powerful when you get it. Oppression is the biggest compliment you'll ever receive. Let me explain why. I was having a conversation with a very powerful friend of mine. I'm not going to mention his name. And I said, hey, why is most of your audience is white? He said, because they need it more than we do. I said, what do you mean? He says, when you are so afraid of me that you erase my history and condition me to believe that history only began when you enslaved my ancestors. When you erase my history so I don't remember who I am. You take out 900 pages of the Bible and only teach me the 238 pages that has to do with obeying your master. When you have to psychologically break me down so that you can keep the body but break my mind. When you set up institutions where my education is stripped or watered down, where every time I build something, you tear it back down. You condition that anytime any of us stand up, we get cut down. When that is your agenda, when you spend trillions of dollars and backroom deals to set up policies, all to keep me from performing at a normal level, not an extraordinary level, just a normal level, because you've had glimpses of what will happen when I'm left alone. You don't try to cage, drug, and tame a bunny rabbit, but you will drug, cage, and tame a lion and hope it never fucking figures out that it's a lion. So all the efforts to oppress me, to keep me from succeeding, tells me everything I need to know about who I am.
That right there just shows you a perspective shift about that. Like in regards to the oppression, and you can see a lot in the community of blaming external forces for why you are the way you are right now, and accepting it and keeping yourself in that limited box like you're just mentioning. But then like you, the way you explain and the way I see it is you are curious and you shift your perspective to like, I am so powerful that these forces are trying to stop me, but I'm not allowing it to stop me. It actually got you more curious to discover who you are, but then also in this mission for those who are ready to step the veil to actually see what is possible, even in the face of the potential oppression and things that are going on as well. And I see a couple of comments in here from Peter for you too. And let's see. Peter said it brings tears to his eyes when he hears about the oppression the Black community has had to endure. And he said also he thinks Malcolm X liked hip hop. He said what's important in oppression is that one needs to keep their wits to themselves and always maintain a sense of humor. My brother made it through Vietnam totally disabled with a ruthless type of humor. And he also, this acknowledgement for you too. He said he think Malcolm X will be proud of you. Very powerful.
Thank you, brother. We haven't had I look at a lot of leaders today in our community, and everybody wants to keep rehashing the problem. I don't need another lecture on the problem.
See, when you rehash the problem, you get to generate more businesses that generate more capital in order to just talk about solving the problem that they don't actually solve.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Conditioning. We even get to this other one I'm going to get to, which we're going to dive deeper with, speak about conditioning. I'll ask the question. I'll ask the question. It was something you wanted to talk about, but like I wanted to ask the question.
Let's go. Let's go wherever you want to go.
Okay. So we're talking about oppression. We're talking about the external things happening outside the community, as regards to other races that are what's happening from the past, currently a little bit now with those oppression and things like that, the systematic racism. But what do you think about the internal racism that goes on between Black to Black communities?
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
It's just conditioning. That's all it is. It's literally just conditioning, right? The concept of race wasn't even invented until 600 years ago, right? And that was the other thing too. When you have to invent a whole concept to convince me that I'm lesser than you. Like, guys, when you step out of the emotion of it and look at the logicalness of it, to even invent that. Now, whether the Willie Lynch letter was real or not, the effects of it are true. turned the light-skinned slaves against the dark-skinned slaves. And we still dealing with that shit now. As if we don't have the common sense to understand that melanin comes in different shades. One of the things, something interesting. I meet a lot of intellectual Black people who the struggle wasn't their experience. That was really weird for me coming out of Oakland, California, where I meet people where the struggle is not their experience, but they look like me. Or you meet people who are extremely intelligent and not with the bullshit, but then they're called white. You whitewashed. When you talk about conditioning, people are not listening to what they're saying. Oh, you got straight A's? Nigga, you whitewashed. Oh, you speak the King's English? Well, nigga, you whitewashed. So let me get this straight. Because based on what you're saying, what you're saying is to be Black means to be ignorant. Like you don't hear what you're saying. So we don't have a tolerance of what it means to be Black. People ask me, why did it take so long? Why am I just now beginning this ministry of sorts? You want to know why? Because I was conditioned to believe I wasn't Black enough. That's why. That's what I fought for 30 years. Am I Black enough? I love my people. But I was always told I was never Black enough. Too whitewashed. So there was a small level of resentment there. And do you know how many intellectual Black people I meet who still have that small level of resentment? The very people who have the knowledge, resources, time, connections to rebuild our community feel like they're not even welcome. So we ostracize our own help because we don't have a tolerance of what it means to be Black. We are the original man. So everything everybody else does came from us. I have no limitations. The box that we put ourselves in, we were put in that box. All right. I did this video the other day. Madam C.J. Walker became a millionaire at a time where niggas wasn't shit and women wasn't either. Alonzo Herndon was freed from slavery in, I think, 1865, and then died a millionaire owning the largest Black-owned insurance company that still exists today. There's a book written by Dennis Kimbrough called Think and Grow Rich, a Black choice. It's written in 1992. Most people don't even know it existed. Most people don't know that Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich, and then a year later wrote Think and Grow Rich for the Negro. But nobody will publish it. So the family kept it and waited for the right person to bring it alive and found Dennis Kimbrough, who was a professor at Clark University, but also a Napoleon Hill student. And they gave him the manuscript and told him to complete it. And in it is riddled with stories of Black people who succeeded at the highest levels in spite of segregation, in spite of slavery, in spite of oppression. And we're conditioned to believe that they are the exception. No! They're the fucking rule. They are not the exception. They are the rule. This is who we are at our finest. But you were taught to believe that they're the lucky ones. That's conditioning.
So how do you talk about this without embodying the resentment? I can feel the way that you're pushing the community forward, but not everybody can speak it with such articulation and also this kind of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you, like, what is the origin of where it is that you speak from so that people can hear that, not the past, but where we can go?
Love. I'm being honest. It's absolute love. It is in the Bible, it says, God said, let us make man in our own image and likeness. And I was talking to Dr. Will Moreland one day. I don't know if you know who that is. That's a brother you should definitely have. And he said, if I were to tell you to go get me a microphone and this image and likeness, what would you go get? Would you get me something different? Or would you get me something just like this, if not the very same thing? Right? And then one of my favorite quotes in the Bible is Psalm 82, verse 6. Ye are gods with a small g. Now, you niggas believe everything else in the Bible but that.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Here we go.
So then I remember studying with Bob Proctor, and Bob Proctor taught me this himself, that the likeness of God is not our physical attributes. You got animals that can hear, see, smell faster, better. But they have something that we have, something they don't. Our cognitive abilities, perception, will, reason, intuition, imagination, memory. Those 6 mental faculties give us absolute power and control to create whatever reality we choose. My Father is God with a big G, creator of all things. But he gave me free will, which is sovereignty, to be, do, and have whatever the fuck I want. And he gave me perception, will, reason, intuition, imagination, and memory as tools to create whatever reality I choose. That makes me God with a small g. Sovereign ruler and master creator over my reality, not anybody else. I could create my wife to be a whore that can't control herself if I wanted to, I need no proof. In my mind, if I can connect the dots and create her in that space, guess what? That's all I see and that's all I hear. I just created her. Or I could choose to see her as a delicate vessel of unconditional love. You understand? I can create my wife into whoever I want her to be. Is that not God? I've never said big G, but little g. And so because I recognize that in myself, and I am is the ignition key to creation, whatever I say after I am, I am. That's the be part in be, do, have. Being is the seed of doing. I am is the ignition key to being. At any moment, I can have a change of heart and become a vegan. and I convince my body that meat is toxic for it, and my body will react. We see the same thing with hypochondriacs. We see the same thing with people with schizophrenia. Do you have any idea how fucking powerful your mind is? How a schizophrenic can be allergic to peanuts with one personality, but not allergic to peanuts with a different personality? I saw this thing on TikTok. This little kid said, and it blew my mind. He said, even from just a scientific standpoint, everything in the universe was down to nothing, so small it didn't have any diameters, no perimeter, no diameter. And then one day the motherfucker went boom and spread out 100 billion light years wide, containing 98% of matter, and the governing factors to control that matter and those governing the matter in a governing fashion. And in there somewhere, this little thing called consciousness was birthed in its infancy, attached to an asteroid, when 100 billion light years found the only inhabitable planet that we know of, attached itself to the evolutionary cycle of Earth to find a host that can recognize itself so it can see itself and realize itself as the universe. And you think you're fucking insignificant? So the conditioning makes sense. Because how do you control 7 billion people who believe at every fiber of their being they're God with a small g? You can't. So the job of an oppressor is to maintain ignorance. And they've been able to do that under the veil of high-level education. Because half the time, we negate what we feel in order to maintain what we were taught. Money is the root of all evil, but I feel good when I have it. That don't make sense.
I think the funniest thing with that is like, money's the root of evil, but give me your money.
It don't make sense. But we're so conditioned, right? When you tell a lie long enough, people begin to believe it. But when you pass that lie to the next generation, it becomes tradition and nobody questions it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're so afraid to tell our past teachers they were wrong that we negate our own experience. And we wonder why we're depressed. Depression comes from suppression of the soul's desires.
Mm. That is a bar. That Verity thing. Peter even said, he said, hallelujah.
So to answer your question, Ms. Henderson, is love. It's love. I connect with Jesus not on a religious level. I connect with him on a teaching level. Because when you really look at what he was saying, not just what he did, how could Jesus say, you will go on and do greater works than me, but then you less than him? That don't make no fucking sense. He didn't say, oh, you'll go on to do good work. You'll get close. You'll go do greater. But how can I go do greater?
And worship me.
Jesus, it's two men. I be paraphrasing the shit out of the Bible. Listen, Jesus, there's a man over in another village healing people in your name. Strike him down. Jesus, no, dumbass. He gets it. I've been with you niggas 3 years and you still don't get it.
That's exactly what it's like, too. I mean, like, it's interesting, man. That's all I can say. It's just especially since my awakening of the religious standpoint to the spiritual aspects. And then I was like renouncing the religion because I'm like, I'm throwing this whole thing out as BS. I've been taught this, but I've been able to reintegrate, like you said, Jesus is a teacher, just like how we're teaching each other this conversation. Jesus is just like that. My relationship with him is like a person I have a conversation with, but he showed what's possible. And like you say, he said, you can do what I've done and even greater. But then it's like, no, I'm not worthy. Like, it's the contradictory in that. And even Jesus said, like, you are God. Yeah.
The power of your faith healed you. Faith meaning belief. We know from reading Dr. Bruce Lipton's book, The Biology of Belief, how the mind can just heal the body. So did Jesus never said, I healed you. He said, do you believe I can heal you? Yes. And when you don't believe that you can heal yourself, use my name. This is the thing I love about Steve Hardison. And one thing I get about Steve Hardison and what's his name? Clarence Avant. This is one thing I've learned watching these two. When you are your word, miracles happen. Clarence Avant, again, another example of a man who in the 60s and 70s became the most powerful figure in Hollywood. We only found out about him a couple years ago when the documentary came out. But everybody in Hollywood knew who he was. And no deals would go down in boardrooms without his say-so. A black man. And they said the reason why there was so much trust in Clarence, because he always did what he said he would do. We could trust his word. Now, with the centurion, when he came up to Jesus, he said, heal my servant. And Jesus said, take me. He said, no. Your word is all I need. Steve Hardison wrote in his book that we live in a verbally inflationary society, where the more you say, the less your word means. And when people are their word, they're fucking unicorns. And people think they're weird because you actually did what you said you were going to do. That's how fucking conditioned we are. That the people who actually do what they say they're going to do are looked at as weird. And when you are your word and people can rely on your word, it becomes worth its weight in gold. And then people will overcome their own doubts and trust your word. Now I'm about to preach. People will overcome their doubt and trust your word over their doubt. Because Jesus was his word. He says, if you don't believe, use my name because you know what I say goes.
His word is bond.
So that by the power of your faith in my word, my belief triggers your belief, and your belief heals you. But when you figure out who you are, you won't need my name. Until then, use mine. If Jesus was a child of God and I'm a child of God, then he is my sibling. Showing me what I'm capable of. Now, people can fight me on that all they want to. I'm not going to fight them for it. I enjoy the fuck out of my life. And I walk in absolute full authority because I begin to question tradition.
Just like Jesus.
That's it. You are all powerful. The entire, there's so many stories in the Bible that I've learned that are just all about self-image. It's all about self-image. Moses sent the 12 to the town to do surveillance. 10 of them come back. We were of grasshoppers to them. Moses like, how you know? You talk to him? They see us like grasshoppers. How you know? You fucking had a conversation with him? Caleb and Joshua comes back. We got that. We even took some of these. And God said what? Send Caleb and Joshua. They are of the right spirit. They know who they are. I used to be afraid to talk like this. And then I remember what my big brother said. Let those who hear, or those with ears, hear. Leave the rest of them niggas where they at.
That was a shirt. Dang. That's a slogan.
Leave the rest of them where they at.
Yeah.
So,
ooh, okay.
What?
Peter's loving it. He's like, he just said, I'm telling you, if I were with Steve for a day, my vibration would be out of this world. What state are you in?
Arizona.
Look at that. He's in the same state as you, Steve, or same state as you, Peter. You're in Arizona too. Look at there.
Nice.
Synchronicity.
Nice. So I don't know, how this conversation is landing on y'all, but I told y'all I am deep. But my love for humanity, my love for Black people, 10,000 years we ran the world. 10,000. They have found Chinese dynasty plates in ancient Zimbabwe ruins. Do you understand how significant that is? We invented math, science, astrology, all of that. But you were conditioned to believe that history started 600 years ago. What about the 10,000 years before that? What about the one-eyed Black Nubian queen that defeated Augustus Caesar? You don't hear about that. Why Nubia wasn't conquered by Rome? Because she took the fight to Rome after they took down Egypt. She took the fight to them because they were neighboring civilizations, Egypt and Nubia. And at one point, they were conquering each other back and forth. And when Rome took over Egypt, here comes this one-eyed Black woman with her army and beat the brakes off them. And then took the fight to Rome. Snatched his statue, cut the head off, and placed it at the feet of the temple in Nubia. So any Nubian citizen had to walk over the head of Augustus Caesar. And then they got so scared, he negotiated a peace treaty. We don't hear about that though. Because it's conditioning. I love the movie Judas and the Black Messiah. That was a great movie. And I hate that it was ever made. Why does my child need to know about Fred Hampton? No disrespect. Because I understand how the human belief system works. That all these movies that keep getting remade about slavery and Black men getting shot down for standing up, it's fucking conditioning. constant reminder to the next generation. We think it's a tribute because it's Black History Month. No, the fuck it ain't. It's conditioning. How the fuck do I need to keep being reminded of that? So I stay in my place. What happened 40 years ago cannot happen today. We have shit like social media, eyes everywhere. It's all conditioning. So because we don't understand how the human belief system works, that's why whenever I teach, we're not talking about shit else until you understand what this word belief means. How it works, how it's installed, how it's uninstalled, how it controls your emotions, how it controls your perspective. Everything. I'm going to teach you everything because it is the driver of human behavior. What you believe determines what you do. And what you do determines what you have. And how you behave. So we're not talking about oppression, racism, systemic shit. We're not talking about shit until you understand this word. And everything about it. Then we're going to talk about meanings. Then we're going to talk about perspectives. And then we're going to talk about values. And then we're going to talk about self-image. We're going to lay a foundation first so you understand the foundation of the human mind before we start having these discussions. Because without it, you're walking into a gunfight with open hands. The war is psychological. Media stands for medium, the stand between. Bunch of cool shit going on in the world, but why do you keep showing me the same shit? You ever notice? And it is so fucking irritating and unfortunate that Black men keep getting shot by police. But I also want you to understand the conditioning that's happening. Because the minute one court case is settled, they immediately turn their focus to what? The next man that was shot. Mm-hmm. And what does everybody fucking do? They start tearing shit up.
Yeah.
Voter suppression. They making it harder for us to change to vote. Okay, go get your 9 pieces of ID. Why are we not having coalitions built to make sure everybody got their 15 fucking pieces of ID? So then we can all take our 15 pieces of ID, walk into the voting booth. We coordinate a national fucking day off for election. All Black people just call off. Fuck it. And we go in there and vote the motherfuckers out and then change the law back. We don't think that way. We just think purely defense.
Yeah. Victimhood. Conditioning. We can respond out of stuff based upon our conditioning, but also like a person open perspective like yourself sees an opportunity to create. So either opportunity to create a solution or an opportunity to complain and to reaffirm whatever the condition of belief is of, oh, they're trying to keep us down and all this other stuff out there. And I was just talking about that too with the whole police thing. I'm like, I know plenty of cops that are amazing cops, but you never see the commentary about the good cops out there doing good stuff. Is always focused on this to cause the uproar and keep the conflicts stirring and going and going and going, as opposed to really this world peace. Because like, yo, if you're really about world peace, then why are you not showing more peaceful shit? You're showing more conflict things to keep this portrayment of separation and segregation going.
You're absolutely right. And there was a time where we had a group of us fighting that brutality, mm-hmm. protecting the group of us that were focused on building. Mm-hmm. We had offense and defense. Now it feels like we just got defense.
Yeah.
That's what J.R. Smith on TikTok. He was talking to some of the other ball players. He said, how come I got 150 million, you got 100 million, you got 100 million, but we ain't got our own gym? Because we were taught to compete, not collaborate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We spend $1 trillion a year. We got 85,000 churches for 12% of the population, and we still ain't got shit? Because we conditioned to think that we wait to get ours on the other side? But the people that condition you to think that is getting theirs now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love is where this comes from. Absolute love. Because I remember having this conversation with some Black Muslim guys that I was teaching. And he's like, it's hard out here for a Black man. I said, how? He was like, what? I said, well, you know my whole story. I said, so let me ask you a question. Let's play with this for a second. If you wanted to run for president, could you? Regardless of what you think about the voting system, could you? Yes. And I just went down a line of political appointments. And I said, if you want to become a lawyer, could you? He said, yes. And I went down a whole line of law enforcement. And I said, if you had the money, could you live in whatever neighborhood you want to live in? He said, yes, if you had the money. And went down a whole line of neighborhoods. If you wanted to run for school president, you want to be on the school board. I literally named for like 10 minutes. And all the answers was yes. And I said, when I decided to take my business from 50,000 a year to 100,000 a year, I didn't have to ask anybody. When I decided to take it from 100,000 a year to 200,000 a year, I didn't have to ask anybody. Not a single soul that I have to ask for permission to create this level of sovereignty where I can come and go as I please. Not one person. You keep talking about what opportunity somebody won't give you, but that's because you keep wanting to play their game. You keep wanting to sit at the table. Build your own fucking table. The only reason why you believe you can't? Conditioning.
Tyler Perry said that. His quote, he said, I ain't get to sit at the table, so I created my own.
But why do we keep seeing him as the exception and not the rule? These Black people that are succeeding at incredible levels and doing incredible, they are not the exception. They weren't part of the lucky sperm club. They don't have better perception, will, reason, intuition, imagination, and memory than you. They just choose to use their mental faculties different than you. That's all. Instead of seeing obstacles, they see opportunity. Instead of using their willpower to keep themselves safe and stay in their comfort zone, they use it to force themselves out of their comfort zones. They use their reason, their ability to form judgments and logic to find ways to succeed instead of create excuses of why you can't. They use their divine connection of intuition to sit and meditate and allow answers that they're looking for to be received. But we just turn our intuition off. Sometimes women be like, what you mean? You knew that nigga wasn't shit before you decided to marry him, didn't you? Yeah. Your intuition told you not to marry him, didn't it? Yeah. And you did it anyway, didn't you? Yeah. That's what I mean. We know intuition is that quiet wisdom that's always constant, but gentle, ever present. And it seems obvious. And it goes against all your logic. That's how you know it's coming from somewhere else. Because it goes against all your logic, but it won't go away. Imagination, the ability to create something out of nothing. Those people use their imagination to create what they believe is possible rather than imagine all the shit that they can go wrong. They use their memory to find lessons from the past so they can apply it to the future instead of using their memory to dwell on resentment. It's not that they're better. They just use the same mental faculties the rest of us have and rearrange them differently. That's it. They are not the exception. They are the rule. I don't know if that answered your question, Kaí, but it's the best I got.
Thank you. Thank you.
My goal is just to duplicate myself as many times as possible. I'm not looking to become the head of the Black community, or that's our problem. We don't need a head. Because then the head gets cut off and then everybody's like, well, what the fuck do I do? I just want to show you who you are. And eventually the name Steve Bacon will become irrelevant because there's so many of them. I didn't know I was even going to go that deep today.
And I want to make sure I answer Peter's question. He's asking what was the name of your book because he wants to get it.
Oh, sometimes I even forget I wrote that book. I've learned so much more since then, but you can get it so you can see where my mind was back then. It's called 7 Steps, or Start Here, 7 Steps to Living Your Best Life. It's deep, but it ain't this deep. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Oh yeah.
It's deep, but it ain't this deep. I'm working on a new one.
Peter's a fan. He's asking to have you back here.
Appreciate you, Peter. I'm still trying to fill Kaí out. She's like, either this nigga's really enlightened or batshit crazy. She's trying to figure out which one it is.
He said it was good. Deep is good. That's what she said.
But it honestly, like it's I didn't want this mission. I'm gonna be very fucking honest with you. I did not want this. I really didn't. I've been avoiding this for a long time, if I'm being really honest. But I slipped into that depression last November. And that's where this whole, meeting Steve Harris and everything else came out. Because I had the most successful year financially I ever had, but I still wasn't fulfilled. The only thing that fulfills me is watching the light bulb go off in Black people's eyes. That's the only thing that fulfills me. Is watching them wake up and go, I'm fucking incredible. No matter what you say. And then step into their genius. And I believe that, let me make this very clear. I do not believe in the idea of separation. I believe we are all one, every last one of us. But I am very aware that the idea of separation exists. And one of the reasons why I focus on Black people is because who is? Who is? Everything I've learned, I had to learn from some other white guy. Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor. Grateful that these guys are my mentors. Don't get me wrong. But there are specific issues that we have that only we can address. And these conversations about belief systems and conditioning and perspective and things like that, there are specific situations within our community that it takes someone with lived experience and the education to address, but not focused on the problem. That's the issue. You get all these educated people and they just keep talking about why you are the way you are. Okay, motherfucker, I get it. Show me how to change it. I get it. That's the part that irritated me. You know, they conditioned us to believe. All right, motherfucker, will teach me how to change the conditioning. I get it. You ain't saying nothing different than the last nigga was saying for the last 10 years. Show me how to actually change it. Give me the how. All these motivational speakers giving medicine. I do fucking surgery.
Oh my God. Bar. Damn.
I'm not interested in giving medicine. I'm interested in doing fucking surgery. We're just gonna cut off the goddamn tumor. Fuck treating it.
With the gotta be a nasty look now. Damn.
Everybody want to talk about the problem. I'm done with the problem. Let's talk about the solution. Let's talk about the next 50 years. Fuck the last 50. Let's talk about the next 50.
Word.
You like Black Panther? You like that movie? Great. Let's build the real Wakanda. You want to know what that looks like? The consolidation of Black wealth, knowledge, and resources. That's all Wakanda was. It's what we would be if we let go of the past 400 years. What would happen if you were weightless? What would happen if we were weightless? Wakanda would happen. I'm interested in building that. But we got to let go of the resentment so our genius can be released.
Mm.
Do what Jesus said. Quit worrying about the speck in everybody else's eye. Fix the one in your own eye. And our culture will change overnight. And it's not for everybody. And it's not going to happen in my lifetime. But I'm looking to become a virus. Steve Bacon wants to be a virus. Just spray it. So anyway.
Where can people find you?
Yeah.
We are rebuilding our website right now because I had to go through all this change. So belief theory has gone unapologetically Black. So everything is changing. So if they go to my website right now, it won't be what it's being built to in the next couple of weeks. They can still go there, but there's a lot of changes that are currently being made. So they can go to belieftheory.com and it has my social media handles and stuff there. But what I'm looking to build is a narrative that's so great that people like yourselves and Peter can raise their hand and say, I want to be a part of that. And the only participation that is necessary is for you to focus on the speck in your own eye. Miracles will happen after that. I'm literally trying to sell the transforming of self. That'll change the family and the community simultaneously. And making sure that people like Madam C.J. Walker or Tyler Perry or, you know, even take the social part out, but the success that some of these people are creating, making that the rule and rather than the exception. It's shifting the whole narrative. And it's a huge, huge task. So I'm recruiting. I'm looking for help. And anybody that wants to be a part of that mission, I created a new group called Black Leaders United. It's private. And if you're Black and you want to be a part of the solution, rather than constantly fucking talking about the problem, if you are about progression and collaboration and seeing about what miracles we can create, I invite you to come join this group, Black Leaders United.
Well, I'm about to join. This is great conversation to have, and right on time as well. Me personally, I've been on this spiritual journey in which I just got to the formless version of me and connecting to that. And like you said, the whole that oneness, understanding the oneness and how we're all connected and things. But then what I've been reintegrating into my life is there is a reason why in this current incarnation of my soul that I'm this color with this information. So it's like right on time that to be able to connect, and definitely would love to sync up with you after this to see it be of service, but it's definitely needed for our community to realize the I am, like you mentioned, of who we are, and would love to see how I could be of assistance for you as well.
I appreciate it, brother. It is time for us to end generational trauma. That is phase 1. We have to make ending that cool. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all, King, Queen, for having me on. And yeah, I'm empty now. Left it on the field.
That's amazing. And this is great. This will be on our YouTube. It'll be on iTunes. And wherever you guys watch this at, leave a comment, leave a like. But then also, when you watch this, just share your takeaway from this. This was a very, very powerful conversation. And the collective just got moved in a powerful way from this conversation. So thank you, Steve, for being. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Graciously received. Thank y'all for having this forum. And yeah, stay blessed.
Stay magical.
Stay magical. I love that.